Hello folks, the Celtic Nerd. Oh, let me just turn on this light so I'm not just in darkness. Hello folks, the Celtic Nerd here. Oh, sorry. There we go. I was accidentally, I linked my Twitch just recently, so I guess I wasn't expecting that. But hey folks, as you can tell by my title of this video and by the banner, we are going to be talking about One Piece live action once again. I just finished watching episode 2. I believe they called it The Man in the Straw Hat. Now, this episode is the Orange Town arc. It seems like they're basically doing each arc in an episode, but again, luckily enough, these little first arcs are only a couple of episodes, with the longest arc, if I'm recalling, being the Arlong Park arc. I think that was the longest one in terms of the entirety of the East Blue saga. So yeah, we're now, let me just right click, Orange Town, and that is when we meet Buggy the Clown for the first time. So this is actually, oh, this is only 3 episodes. No wait, no, sorry, it is 5 episodes. Sorry, my bad. Anime episodes, it says 4 to 8, but 5. I think they're counting maybe the very end or the very beginning, where there's a bit where it's an extremely short amount of time of it being in there. I don't know exactly if that's the case, but okay. So this is our introduction to Buggy and his crew. Now, with the previous review, I talked about how there's a lot of blood. There's a surprisingly amount of, there's actually a large amount of blood in this series, as opposed to what we get in the anime. Now, in the anime, there is blood, there is injuries, but for the most part, it is somewhat tame. You would occasionally see some blood dripping and some minor wounds, and you don't really see any of the serious stuff until much later in the series. However, again, like in episode 1, we see someone being bisected, and like there is that's quite gruesome, and we see a person getting their head caved in, so quite dark. So this live action adaptation is going to be significantly darker. Oh, we have 2 people replying, sorry. Hello, Cole. And hey, Blazer Rylick. So, Cole, as I said, like, I'm going to try and approach this with 2 fronts. One, as a diehard One Piece fan. I'm up to date on the manga, I'm up to date on the anime, and I've been following it for over 20 years now. I'm giving this a chance, but I will be obviously critiquing it as a comparison when I get to that stage in comparison. However, first I'm going to approach it as just as if this is my introduction to One Piece. This is a lot. This is a dark show. So to start, you know, it's okay to be skeptical. Like, hey, be skeptical. Always be skeptical, especially with live action adaptations, because we're not always going to get a Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is by far the best the best adaptation I've seen of video games, books, anything. Lord of the Rings is still top tier, and the chances of us getting another Lord of the Rings is very low. But anyway, on with the review. So, this episode definitely shows that this is a dark show. Like, they're definitely taking a dark approach to it. The episode kicks off with Nami talking about the map that they just acquired back in thing. We also and she explains that the world is split into 4 quadrants, with the red line being the supercontinent that circles the globe, and then the grand line being an ocean that goes around. Now we did not. She does not mention why they can't just sail straight into the Grand Line. She doesn't mention that at all, and I'm curious why they didn't. As a in terms of okay. So sorry, I was just reading a comment in the chat. So she does not make mention, or Luffy doesn't even none of them pose the question like, hey, why can't we not just sail straight into the Grand Line? It is a good question. None it wasn't brought up, but I feel like it should if I was there. And again, looking at this from if I know nothing of One Piece, that's the question I'll be asking. Why can't we not just sail straight into the Grand Line? We have the map. As you said, like, it's right here. We can just, we're in the East Blue, just sail south. We're in the Grand Line. Now, obviously, people who read the manga, people who've watched the anime, we know the reason why they can't just sail straight into the Grand Line. I'm just, again, approaching it from that. Again, so it's a good bit of lore we're getting in terms of how the world is shaped. We do then get a scene involving Garp arriving, and also we see Cody, sorry, not Cody, Kobe, quadrants. Yeah, in all fairness, like, how else would you describe the fact that the world is technically split into 6 oceans by a supercontinent and the calm belts? But again, wow, getting distracted by the chat. So we get Kobe, putting on his little cadet suit. However, Axe-Hand Morgan is still in charge of the Marine base. And we also hear about how Garp is the hero of the Marines who captured Goldie Roger. And, like, yeah, and everyone's standing at attention. We hear Axe-Hand... I believe this will actually... we hear Axe-Hand Morgan giving his recount of the previous episode, the attack. He's saying that, oh, they must have been planned for ages. There was a crazy, vicious devil fruit user. I had to choose. We lost many good Marines, and I had to choose between securing the map or saving my Marines. And he also talks shit about his son, because, of course, he'll talk shit about his son. We also see Helmeppo. Now, mind you, Helmeppo's name has not been dropped yet. Like, it still hasn't been dropped. No, like, I don't know. It's really weird how big of a deal Helmeppo. Sorry, again, this is me talking about the comparisons, but we still, in terms of the show, we still do not know Axe-Hand Morgan's son's name. Cut back to the Straw Hat crew. They get attacked. A bunch of red flares and dust start coming down over their ship, and it's putting Zoro and Nami to sleep. So Luffy decides to act fast. He feels like he's going to sleep, so he rushes back in, grabs the tube that contains the map, and he forces himself to swallow it, to hide it inside of himself, because this is the map to the Grand Line, and he wants to make sure he holds onto it. He does manage to look out the window, and he sees they changed a lot as a new, but as new to it, and using this as an entry point, you will ask a lot of questions on how the party became the party. Yes, very good comment, Blaze. They rushed Nami. I will say the quick Nami and Zoro meeting up with Luffy and traveling together. Yeah, it is quite rushed. Again, in episode 1, and like, again, however, in terms of this being the jumping point, it does feel semi-organic. It still feels a little rushed, but it's still semi-organic in the fact. Okay, Cole, fair enough. If that's your opinion on the thing as a whole. Now, again, if you haven't watched it, it is like, I understand skepticism. Again, I truly understand it. However, keep in mind, Oda approved, the author and creator himself approved of the live action. And this is a man who has constantly declined or spoke out during filler arcs, movies, about any type of devil fruit or special power that was coming into that was going to be introduced in the filler or movie. Whenever there was a thing coming up, he stepped in and was like, no, you cannot have that power. I have plans for that power. So if this is a man who is clearly passionate about his project. He's clearly passionate about his world that he built. So if he signs off on One Piece live action, who are we to say it is truly terrible? Now we can disagree with some of the changes. Like, I've disagreed with some of the changes in episode 1. I voiced those things, but again, if I wouldn't trash the show unless you watch it. Anyway, as I was saying, but yeah, it does feel a little rushed and organic. Like, it's rushed and organic of how Nami, Zoro, and Luffy are now traveling together. But anyway, back to what I was saying. So yeah, Luffy sees that Jolly Roger coming in out into view, and he's like, okay, we're being captured by pirates. We then cut back to Garp and Kobe. Now, it does feel like this might be a trend going forward, that I think what Netflix is trying to do is they're trying to tell two stories at the same time. They're telling us Kobe's story as a Marine, and they're telling us Luffy's story in his pursuit to become a Pirate King. So I think I would say we should expect more of these bounces between them. I will get to the rushing. Don't sorry folks, the stream chat is definitely making me constantly bounce to my comparisons to the anime and the manga. I'm gonna get to that. I'm trying to save those stuff until the end. But no, Cole, in the stream chat, you make a very good point, and I'm gonna get to it. So yeah, they're basically trying to tell two stories. It feels like to me that they're trying to tell two stories. So yeah, we're back with Kobe and Garp. Garp is in Axan Morgan's office, and he's basically he zeroed in on Kobe. Now, fans of the show, we understand that certain powers that Garp will have, that is why he was able to zero in on Kobe. It's not completely. And our comment. This good part where they first met. No, they didn't. No, we see Luffy meeting Nami and Zoro. So I'm sorry, Cole, but I have to call you out there. They did not skip the part. Like, in the first episode, I'm talking. This review is for episode 2, and they completely talk about how Zoro and. Like, we see Zoro and Luffy's meeting, and we see how Nami and Luffy meet. They changed it, but we see the meeting. We're not jumping in with them already being a crew. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to call you out there. Like, no, you're wrong there. But anyway, so where was I? Yeah, so. Garp is questioning Kobe about his potential affiliations, because he's been seen with the pirate in question in the local tavern. So Garp's questioning him. Kobe is trying to, give his own explanations. He's talking about why he didn't mention it when he joined. Again, Axan Morgan praised Kobe in front of Garp, saying oh, my worthless son would have been killed too if it wasn't for our new recruit. So there you go. That's why Garp's questioning him. The questioning continues, and yeah, Garp questions is Kobe going to be does he have any loyalty or affiliation truly to this pirate? And Kobe basically just talks about how being a Marine is something that he always wanted and it's his dream. So we then cut back to the trio waking up in a crate. Now they're talking about like, oh, we're captured by the Marines. Like, here's what they're going to do to us. But then Luffy steps in and is like, no, no, they're pirates. I saw the Jolly Roger just before I went to sleep, and don't worry about the map. It's in a safe place. And he, taps his stomach, and Nami's just like, ew. Of course she would be like, ew. Then all of a sudden, the walls of the crate start coming down. Oh, we have another comment. It took trios 3 to 5 episodes where Nami started to travel with Luffy. No, it was 2 episodes for Zoro to join up with Luffy, and it was in Orange Town. Like this is the episode. Like sorry, this is the arc. Orange Town is when Nami then starts traveling with them. We see her in the first episode. We see her in the second episode when she comes across Boogie's crew. But then then we see her again in episode 3 when that's when Luffy and Nami have their first proper conversation, and she starts traveling them at the end of the Orange Town arc. But she meets them properly for the first time in episode 3. Anyway, but no, Zoro starts traveling with Luffy like roughly episode 2. Like that's when they meet, I believe, and like I think it's around I think that episode. No, maybe it was episode 3 that Zoro officially joins. I'm trying to remember how long were they in Sybil's Town. Let's see here. Let's go back to the previous arc. Sorry, folks. Again, I want to reply to people when they message the chat. There were only 4 episodes in what's it called? In this arc. So let's see. On the high seas, Luffy's first voyage. Let's see. How many episodes did they spend on that place? There we go. There we go. Road Resort. I'm just going to click him. Occupation affiliations debut. Okay, so he was actually debuted at the end of episode 1 because that's when we see him first, where he had that cool epic guitar riff when he looks up. How did episode 2 end? That will be the big difference. Let's see. Episode 2 is titled Roronoa Zoro. Sorry, episode 2 is titled The Great Swordsman Appears, Pyro Hunter Roronoa Zoro. Then episode 3 is Morgan vs Luffy. Who's this mysterious, beautiful woman? Okay, so yeah, it's not until so Luffy meets Zoro in episode 2, starts trying to recruit him, and then it's in episode 3 that Zoro then joins the crew. So okay, yeah. No, and again, Cole, do not apologize for your passion of the series. Do not apologize for your passion of the series. It's understandable. Again, anime fans have been hurt countless times in the past by companies that do not care about the source material. My only thing is, do not write off every single live action adaptation. Like, write it off if you don't trust the company, fair enough. And if the company has proven in the past, which, okay, fair enough, Netflix has shown in the past that they cannot care about it. However, if the author or the creator of the show, of the manga or show itself says no, this is going to be different, that's when you need to give it a chance, Cole. Okay? Like, I'm not angry, I'm not like pissed off at you or anything. Like, it's nice to have. Yeah, no, that's fine. Like, hey, this is why I do these live chats. is, and I encourage people. I encourage people to try and have a conversation. There's no problem with that goal. You don't even need to apologize for me, remembering stuff like and looking stuff up. Don't apologize for that. Having these debates is what keeps this franchise alive. But yeah, no, like as I said, if Oda says it's a good one, that's why we need to give it, an actual look. If it wasn't, if Oda said nothing about about this live action series, I would be like you. If Oda was like, if Oda was silent about the One Piece live action adaptation, I would be like you. I'd be like, it's a live action adaptation. I'd be like, ooh. But no, I'm giving this live action a chance because the man himself, Oda, the man who created the series that I am so passionate about and that you are clearly passionate about, Izzy-san, no, Oda actually went to the when he's the series now starting. Oh, the series is on Netflix now, Blazer. But Oda himself has been talking about One Piece. He has given the go-ahead. He has been apparently involved in every single episode. Like, this is why everyone was talking about the live-action adaptation, is because of the fact that Oda has been so involved in each episode. That is unheard of. Every single live-action adaptation in the past has always been the author or the creator of the manga or anime themselves had nothing to do with it. They've been silent. They sign off, yeah, you can make a live action adaptation of this, go ahead, leave me alone. That's pretty much been their approach. It was the same for Full Amalgams, been the same for Dragon Ball, it's been the same it was the same for The Last Airbender. But they all had hands-off approach. They were like, just leave me alone, make your movie, whatever, leave me alone. Oda, no, he got involved, and that's why I'm saying give this a chance. If you still don't like it, fine. You don't like it, you don't like it. But do not just completely dismiss it because it's a live action. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, where was I? Yes, back to the Straw Hats in the crate. So the crate falls apart, and the Straw Hats are in basically a circus tent. Now, this is when we're introduced to the antagonist of this episode, Buggy the Clown, who I got to say is giving me Joker vibes, and that is a good thing. I like it. I like how dark and creepy this... Again, I enjoy this dark, creepy pirate clown who has this entire village chained up, and one of his crew members is even holding signs for applause. And you can see that the crowd's like crying, and but they're being forced to clap. And this dark feel of Buggy, like, oh my god, it's very Joker vibes. And also he's all about putting on a show, because like, even though his crew are doing all this cool stuff, my house coat is annoying me now, get over there. So his crew's doing all these like tricks and whatnot, right? And he just says like, no, the spotlight was off, where was the dancing? He's given out to his crew for not performing high enough, and he was also criticizing the guy running the spotlight for not, for being late on his cue to bring the spotlight to him for his big entrance. Because anyone who knows Buggy, he likes to put on a show. But yeah, this is a very joke. Buggy is the best part clown. Yeah, oh no. He is definitely... Cole, I agree. He's not my favorite. He's not the best. He is up there, though. I love his aesthetic. And I will say, when I first saw the live-action trailers for One Piece, as soon as I saw Buggy, I was like, oh... Because they did, like, just like how they elevated Axe-Hand Morgan to being, just a throwaway character, and like he gets hit like once and he's done. They elevated Axe-Hand Morgan to a proper fighter, and they elevated Buggy the Clown. He is, oh, I wouldn't, to a young child, he's probably nightmare fuel. It's a very dark, again, this is why I'm saying the show is a very dark show. Boogie Clown is quite dark, because he has this whole sadistic side. Now, he says he was planning a heist for ages, and the Straw Hats, took the map that he was planning on stealing. So now he has to interrogate them to get back the map. So this is pretty cool, because again, once again, we see Nami thinking quick on her feet. Now, she immediately starts talking up Boogie's performance, and she's like, "Oh, what if I can offer you a performance? Performer, like, a great performer, not as great as you, of course." And she immediately grabs Luffy's straw hat and throws it up in the air, and everyone looks because Luffy starts stretching his hand out up to grab the hat. Yeah, like, no, you are absolutely right. We do see that anger in this episode, and yeah, I will say, if we got a proper like live action Joker pirate, yeah, no, he will definitely out nightmare fuel Boogie. Like, this Boogie is there. He's still scary, but he's still humorous. He walks that fine line. Whereas with the Joker, he was always more scary and sadistic. But yeah, so Boogie is looking up, and everyone's looking up as Luffy stretches his hand out. Nami bolts it. She is going out the door of the tent, but she stops when she sees the destruction of the town that Boogie has wrought. Clearly they destroyed the town to build this little circus. Now we get introduced. This is also our new introduction to a new devil fruit, the Chop Chop fruit. I'll just pick up my little doggy. Here's my little doggy rascal. Oh, he doesn't like when I hold him like that, but there you go. Here you go, buddy. He loves being held though. Oh, there you go. There you go. Who's my little doggy? Here's my little doggy. Oh, alright, onto the bed. Right, no, you're going onto the bed. Don't crawl at me. You're going onto the bed. Alright. Yeah, so Boogie proclaims he will be king of the pirates, and that his crew is made up of freaks and outcasts that society has shunned. And he even offers a place to Luffy. So during the interrogation, we get a bit of flashback of Luffy and the meaning of the Straw Hat and why it's so important to him. But we also see that Boogie, he's trying his best to torture Straw Hat. He's, pulling him, trying to, get as much torturing as he can. We also see him trying to, again, this is what I say, he gives me Joker vibes. Is he bounces, like his mood swings is all over the place. He's being all like, sympathetic, like, to Luffy's like, did someone betray you? Absent parent, someone you idolized and false worshipped. He's being all sympathetic, but then 360 he's, angry. No, Cole, that was not his plan. His plan was, now this is going back to the manga and the anime, his plan was, if he could no longer swim under the water to get treasure that was underwater, he will own all treasure that is above the water. Now again, I'll go more into those details when I talk about the differences. So yeah, but that's Boogie's ambition. He wants to be king of the pirates. We cut then to Zoro and Nami being, in what Boogie called the green room, but they're really just tied up, and Nami's in the cage. we see an exchange between them. Nami's like, well, let's get out of here. Pirates are pirate, blah 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 blah. It's very adamant of how much she hates pirates and how good of a thief she is because she has multiple lockpicks. Whereas we see Zoro does not trust her. For one, she's self-proclaimed thief, and then the other is he really does not like the fact that she just ran out on them. And here's the thing: technically, Zoro, we have not seen a scene yet where Zoro fully joins the crew yet. They just happen to be traveling in the same direction, but we see that Zoro is starting to build up his loyalty to Luffy because of what Luffy is willing to do. So we're slow. So like it's not an immediate joining of his crew, but we're starting to see it happening. So like I feel like they're not having the crew formed just yet. I feel like they're trying to build up to it, as opposed in the manga and the anime. Because with the manga and the anime, he agrees to join. Before Axan Morgan's defeated. With this, I feel like they're trying to build it up a bit more. Blackbeard is a good character. The only one detail you can. I'm not going to read that out loud because potential spoilers. So yeah, we eventually do get a fight with Luffy and Buggy, and we see the chop fruit, which allows the pirate to separate and to fly all over the place and whatnot. It pretty much makes him. He's like the polar opposite of Luffy, whereas Luffy cannot be injured properly by blunt attacks such as round bullets and punching and clubs, but he's vulnerable to swords and spikes. We have okay, all right, I'll talk about the stretching power now. Actually, yes, Buggy is immune to swords. That I was building to that, Cole. The fact that Buggy is immune to swords, he's almost the opposite of Luffy's vulnerabilities. Now, onto the stretching. The stretching is as good as you're going to get it in a live action show. If it was a movie, it would look better. But again, I will say it looks better than all the stretching shit we have seen over the course of other live action stuff. This is the best stretching effect I have seen compared to the Fantastic Four and to other shows that had stretching effects that were not animated, obviously. It looks, it's stretching is always going to look weird. Yeah, stretching is always going to look weird. It's just always going to be a thing. Look at the Fantastic Four movies, and look at the Mask and all those type of characters that had the ability to stretch out their bodies. This is as best as we're going to get it. Maybe down the line we would have something that's as seamless, but the thing is, again, CGI is always going to look a little out of place in live action. It's always going to look out of place, We're not quite there yet. So, think about it this way. Oh, pardon me. Even, Boogie's power is going to look out of place because it has to be CGI, There's only so much you can do with practical effects. So, yeah, we get a fight between Buggy and Luffy. Eventually, the Mask gets a pass because he... Yes, you're right, Blaze. The Mask is supposed to be more of a toonish character, but keep in mind it's still live action, and it's still stretching powers, and again, he's an adaptation of a graphic novel. This is still an adaptation of. If you're going to say he gets a pass because he was a toon character, you have to give a pass to Mr. Fantastic because he's a comic book character. And you need to give a pass to Luffy then for being an anime character. You can't give a pass to one character when someone else with the exact same power, or that can do the exact same thing, a non-pass. You have to be fair. But no, I see what you're getting at, and it's funny that you mentioned toon character. there. Anyone who's up to date on the manga and the anime knows what I'm referring to by the fact that it's funny that you said tune. Anyway, so we cut back after the fight between Buggy and Luffy. We then cut back to Garp. Now, at this point, Garp has arrested Axan Morgan, and he's given a speech about how he is going to get all the new recruits of this. Oh yeah, never make them angry. Well, see, here's the thing. Every other character, if they stop smiling, you're in trouble. But if Zoro starts smiling, you're in trouble. See, Zoro's always going to be, you know, plain face when he fights. But when he realizes that, like, when he starts smiling, that's because he realizes, oh, you're a proper challenge. It's time to get serious. That's when you know you're in trouble. When Zoro smiles, that's when you're in trouble. Or when he puts on his bandana. Anyway, so Garp proclaims he's going to take all the new recruits of this marine base, this marine outpost, and they're going to go after the pirates that robbed them. Yeah, that's exactly what I said, Cole. So yeah, Garp is proclaiming he is going to pursue the Straw Hat Pirates. And that's where the episode ends. Also, hold on. The episode ends with Nami fixing the Straw Hat. And again, we get a flashback of why the Straw Hat is so important to Luffy. And like why Luffy has such admiration for Shanks. And Shanks does a pretty interesting thing involving a big sea monster that has not been explained. You know what? With that being said, we're now going to move on to as a standalone episode. When I say standalone episode, I mean out of the context as a One Piece fan. If I was looking at this show so far as a non-One Piece fan being introduced, it's a great show. Again, costume design is amazing. The acting is amazing. The props pretty good, and the story is not bad. I do find it interesting that they're doing they seemingly are doing two stories side by side. Again, we're only in episode 2. If it happens again in episode 3, that's when we have a significant pattern of them trying to tell two stories. Now, with that being out of 10, I will give this show so far as a non-One Piece fan maybe a 7 or 8 out of 10. You know, it loses some points because of the telling of two stories side by side. I'm not a big fan of that. I'd rather what anime does, which is when they're telling two stories, they have they will have one set of episodes tell one person's story, and then they will do another set of episodes that tell the different story, you know. And technically those other side story episodes could be argued as filler. It's sometimes what you need, you know. This whole the constant bouncing back and forth is not really that big of a deal. It's not a thing that I'm a fan of. So that's why it loses points in that regard, in my opinion. Now let's talk about the changes they have made. So, big change is the fact that Nami and Zoro and Luffy are already traveling together. In the manga and the anime, it's only Zoro and Luffy traveling together, and Luffy but he's been like, oh no. Okay, now again, all these changes were approved by Oda, so I will be talking about the changes, and then I'll be giving my opinion of some of the changes. Now, my opinion is not gospel. I'm not saying I know better than the creator of the whole bloody franchise. I'm not saying I know better than him. This is a man who started a 5-year manga plan, which then, because of him world building, stretched into 25 plus years. The man knows better than me. So anyway, first big change, as I said, Luffy ends up in Orange Town completely by accident. He wanted some food. He thought he saw a small bird. He stretches up to try and grab the bird to pull it down so they can eat it. Turns out the bird was bigger than he thought, and the bird's carrying him off, and Zoro is rowing after him trying to save him. And again, Zoro is a member of the crew. He's canonically a member of the crew at that point. We have not had confirmation yet in terms of the live action series if he views himself a member of the crew. Cut away to Nami sneaking up. Oh, we have a comment. No. The creator created One Piece. We're just giving our opinion, though they did make it so Zoro that they can. Zoro is never able to read a map. Zoro constantly gets lost. If Zoro could read a map, he wouldn't be getting lost. Oh. So yeah, Zoro is chasing after Luffy in terms of the manga and the anime. And this is not the case. They were not captured. Zoro is the side comedy, not the full. Exactly. We have like during action moments and during loyalty moments, Zoro is a stone-faced epic character. But he has a particular running gag that makes him a side character that's humorous. Like, and again, I hope to God they never change that about Zoro. I agree with Cole. Like, that's the running gag with Zoro that everyone loves, is the fact of how bad his sense of the direction is. Now, don't get me wrong, it was never terrible in the early episodes. If you watch the early episodes, he seems to know some bit about how to get from point A to point B, but then it gets progressively worse as the series went on. It did. To the point where if you tell him go right, he'll immediately go left. That's when it gets real bad. But again, Oda realized people are having fun with that running gag, so he made it worse. So that's Oda reacting to what people liked. So yeah, like, is he as bad as current Zoro's sense of direction? No, he's not there yet. But who knows? We haven't gotten his backstory yet. So, yeah, so the big change is how they end up in Orange Town, and the fact that some of them are not crew members yet. Like, Boogie is also a bit toned down a little bit. He is not as sadistic as we see him in the live action. He's a lot tamer in the anime and the manga. Now, here's the big change. I'm going to get this out of the way. I'm going to get this out of the way very quickly, because it's my big I don't like this moment in terms of this episode. The big difference that I don't like. We're going to get it out of the way actually right now. Now, I'm curious. We have some people active in the chat. I'm gonna pose this question to the chat right now. What are the limits of Boogie's chop power in terms of making his body fly? What are the limits of his power? I'm curious. Now, if you guys take too long, I'm going to assume you've looked it up. So I'll repeat the question. What are the limits of Boogie's ability to make his body parts fly? Wait a couple more seconds, because they might be typing. I didn't know you. Okay, all right. If you just don't know, it's fine. I don't know. I changed too far in the manga now. No. The limits of his devil fruit are that he has to keep his feet on the ground. And he is basically his feet act as an anchor point for all his other body parts when they fly around. He can make his head float, he can make all his other body parts flow, but his feet have to stay on the ground, and his body parts can only go a certain distance away from his feet. If they go out of that distance, they just drop to the ground, and they will stay there until someone picks them up and brings them back into the radius, or until he goes back into their radius. So that's the limit. Typically, and also blunt attacks work on him. That's the other limitation. Again, typically his devil fruit is semi the opposite of Luffy's when it comes to what type of damage you need to deal to him. That's not the case in the live action. In the live action, oh, wait on. I remember that makes sense, but didn't one episode where he turned into the boogie car where his feet was off the ground, make sure his feet is with someone, then sheesh. Yeah. The boogie car is only in one episode, and yeah, like the thing is, it does work also if, sorry, let me rephrase that. He can't make his feet float. Sorry, my bad. I'll correct myself. He cannot make his feet float. His feet, when he can make his feet walk. He can make his feet walk on their own, and as long as his feet are within a certain distance, then yeah, he always has to be within a certain perimeter of his feet. Essentially, again, his feet act as an anchor point. So in Chop Chop Boogie, which is I think the name of his, because again his name Boogie is another word for a type of car. He does have his feet with him. He carries his feet with him on that case. But again, I don't know if it would work if he was like. It seems like he could pick up his feet and make them fly that way. It's like if he holds his feet, yeah, maybe that works. But it was in the Impel Down story arc that Boogie himself explains the limits of his power and how he has to always keep within a certain radius. Now, I imagine if he was an awakened Paramecia type, if he awakened his devil fruit, that radius probably gets much bigger. I imagine it could get much bigger, and he could probably start doing the same thing to other, things around him, as per awakening devil fruits are. So that is the limitations. If you punch him or kick him, he will feel it. He cannot mitigate that damage unless he purposefully, like if you punch him and if his reflexes are fast enough, he can dislodge his head. Maybe that will help. Yes, that did. That completely stopped him. What also stopped him was when Luffy was pulling the skin on his feet, or even slammed his foot onto the pavement toes first. In the anime, that's how Luffy stopped Boogie from attacking Nami. He just kept tormenting his feet. So yeah, like again, sharp attacks Boogie has no problem with, but if you stab at him or slash him, Boogie's not going to care. In the live action, they changed that, and again, it's something I'm not a fan of. We see his feet flying all over the place. Like we see, and they're not being held up by anything. His feet are flying on their own volition, and when Luffy does Gumma Gumma no Pistol to his chest, his chest flies out in a circle. They changed how his devil fruit works, and they buffed him. Boogie got a huge power buff. Again, they seem to be buffing the antagonists a little bit. So they gave Boogie and Axehand Morgan a big buff in fighting strength. So they essentially took out Boogie's weakness to bludgeoning attacks. Because again, Luffy does Gumma Gumma no Pistol to Boogie's chest, and then all that happened was Boogie's there was a hole in Boogie's chest where Luffy's punch was, and that hole went flying out the back of him, and then he flew back in. To seal up the hole. So yeah, they buffed his ability to move around his body parts floating, and they removed his weakness to bludgeoning attacks. So the way they defeated Boogie, now mind you, we still get Boogie mini version. In terms of the heroes being nerfed, not necessarily. Again, in the first episode, Nami is fighting alongside Zoro and Luffy against the Marines, and she is holding her own. So, like, the heroes are getting buffed, as well as the villains, it seems. But again, I critiqued why I didn't like... I already talked about how I didn't like how Nami was fighting in the previous video. We're talking about this episode, and the changes they made. Now, so I talked about the big change I did not like, which was Boogie's changing of how his power works. The changes that I did like about Boogie, I loved how sadistic they made him. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. I loved the costume design of Boogie. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely loved it. I loved the actor who they got to play Boogie. Amazing. Oh my god, the guy was flipping emotions very quickly, as you would expect. Like, they made Boogie slightly unhinged. Absolutely loved it. Another change they changed was Boogie. They sort of changed his motivation. When he first became a pirate, he did want to go after the One Piece. Boogie himself mentions it later in the manga. That he always wanted to go after the One Piece, but eventually he did settle for just going after treasure, you know. So they changed. It seems like they took that motivation from the manga, maybe, and they decided to give that as his motivation for the show. So it's okay to have him want to be Pirate King, because, like, again, in his mind, being the Pirate King means he is famous, he is loved, everyone will know his name. So it does harken back to Boogie's whole sort of clown persona of how he wants people to know about him. He wants to be flashy, he wants everyone to, you know, like his performances, even as sadistic as they are. So again, there are changes that I can accept. Another change they did was, again, the whole Kobe stuff. Kobe, we did get his story. In terms of the manga, we got his story as the cover art story. See, what the manga does... no, she does not have her Devil Fruit yet. She doesn't get her... we don't... it's not until Logtown do we see her with the Devil Fruit. Anyway, I need to stay on track. Because we're reaching almost an hour, folks. So, Kobe's story arc is basically told to us, in terms of the manga, on the cover page. And in the anime, it got like 3 episodes of filler, where we basically learn about how Kobe gets trained as a Marine. So that's a big difference that they seem to be taking. Again, we'll find out next episode if it's a proper pattern of them telling the stories side by side. Also, Garp is not introduced properly until much later in terms of the manga, and like, he technically doesn't pursue Luffy until much later. The fact that they changed it to that he's pursuing Luffy now is a bit questionable. It's an interesting change. Like, I can understand. No, as the manga and anime fans know, they know the relation between Garp and Luffy. So it does sort of make sense that if Luffy is getting famous, why Garp will want to chase after him as soon as possible. In fact, once Garp was done with Kobe's training, he immediately went after Luffy. So it's they're pretty much just moving Garp's schedule ahead, as opposed to taking Kobe to train at Marine HQ. which is going to have some impact in the story later down the line. I'm curious about how they're going to settle that change. Another big change is we see some new Den Den Mushi. Now, the Den Den Mushis that we've seen in terms of the manga comes in 3 varieties. We have the small little mini ones, which are often worn as like a watch type thing. It's for secret secret communications. We see the standard ones, which are roughly the size they are in the show, and then we see what's it called? The big massive ones. Now those big massive ones we only saw once, and that was to project what was going on at Marineford. It was projecting the execution of someone. Yes, the snail phones is what I'm referring to. We did get introduced to a subspecies of them in Wano, but they're extremely short distance. They only work, a couple of miles. Like they are extremely short distance compared to the Den Den Mushi that we see the rest of the world use in Wano, and that subspecies is only found in Wano. So like those ones work more like walkie talkies, as opposed to the proper Den Den Mushi. We see a new Den Den Mushi. This one looks to be more like an earpiece. And we see Nami use it to contact someone about how she has the map. At the very end of the episode, we see her take out a box. She takes it you wouldn't even tell it's a snail at first. She takes it, puts it on her ear. She dials a number with the rotary part, and then she says, "Tell him that I have the map." And then that's it. It cuts to black. Now, anime viewers and the manga readers know who exactly she is referring to by him. We all know it. So I'm okay with that change. It adds a bit more mystery to Nami. In the manga and anime, the only sort of mystery we kept getting with her was she would occasionally just have a strange look on her face. That was it. So this is a nice, pleasant change. It builds up to the moment that, again, manga and anime fans know what's going to happen. So it's a nice build up towards that. Another big change is they took out a fight. Sorry, no, they took out 2 fights. 2 big fights in the Orange Town arc. Fight number 1 they took out was Luffy versus Beast Tamer Moji and his lion. They took out that fight. The second big fight they took out, actually you can count this as 2 fights. They took out 2 fights of Zoro's. They took out Zoro's first attempt to fight Buggy when Zoro got stabbed by Buggy's dirty fighting because Zoro was not aware of the Chop Chop powers. So they removed that. They also removed his fight with the unicyclist. And they gave the unicyclist a personal vendetta against Zoro because Zoro killed and claimed the bounty of his brother. So the unicyclist, we actually don't even get to see him fighting on his unicycle. We don't see their epic sword, the epic fight between them. Now, that being said, it's going to be surprising. This might surprise people. I can understand why they took out the Lion Tamer fight and the unicyclist fight. Can you imagine how difficult that would have been to do in live action without it looking terrible? Imagine a constant CGI line on screen fighting Luffy. Imagine it. It would have looked terrible. Now also imagine the same thing with a unicyclist. Like, doing that thing with stunt doubles would be extremely difficult. Unicycling is already difficult in real life. Imagine them trying to coordinate a nice looking fight with someone on a unicycle using a sword against Zoro with his tree sword style. That fight would have looked ridiculous. It would have looked out of place. and the constant back and forth between CGI at that moment would have been way too much. So I am actually glad they removed that. I know that might be controversial, but I am glad they took that fight out. Other big changes. Well, we did not see Axhan Morgan take his own son hostage to try and get away from Garp. Yeah, that was a bit of a. I'm not super okay with that change, because Helmeppo, like that, it's supposed to be at that moment that Helmeppo and Kobe begin their friendship, because Kobe risks his life to save Helmeppo, you know, and Helmeppo always remembered that. And that was also when he decided, you know what, I will become a Marine, and I will become a Marine that will catch my dad. Mind you, he says daddy, but still, the sentiment's still there. So, yeah. They took that moment out. We might still get it, maybe, but as it is now, the last we saw Axhan Morgan in terms of the live action, he was strewn up like Zoro was in the yard when Garp was giving his speech about pursuing the Straw Hat Pirates. Now, another change, I do like how they approached Shanks losing his arm. And I like how we still got our little hint towards Conqueror's hockey. I am glad we still got that. Like, mind you, the stare he gave, like, the stare is not as intense. Like, let's face it, no one could no one could mimic that stare that Shanks gave the sea to the Lord of the Sea. No, it wasn't called. He wasn't called Lord of the Sea. He's called Lord of the Coast. Sorry, the big sea serpent is called Lord of the Coast. Yeah, no one's going to be able to mimic that. No one's going to be able to mimic that scene. But we got it. We also got to see the red-haired pirates actually kick ass. We actually get a proper fight scene with them, which is something we did not get in the anime or manga, and we still haven't got in the anime or manga. We see Yasob, doing his like a pistol trick. He's fighting with two pistols like they're cool, like daggers and clubs, and we even see how he's a trick shot expert. Like, one of his crew members is being held at the throw, and he's being used as a shield, and Yasob is just like, oh, there's a metal pipe there, bang. Like, he has one pistol aiming at the guy, to keep his attention, and then he just goes, bang. And the bullet ricochets and hits the mountain bandit in the head, like saving his crew member. And then we see him like, okay, and then he starts beating the shit with using the pistols as weapons. And then we see now they shortened the first mate's gun. His weapon is normally a big massive thing, and he does use like a club in the manga and anime. We see him use it, and we see him still use it as a club, but it's much shorter now. It's about hold on, let me get into the camera. Oh, wrong way. Nope. It's about the length of my arm. It's about like this length. The rifle is. It's more of a shotgun, I would say. Shotgun length, pump action shotgun length. But yeah, we see him using it as a club. We even see the fat crew member. He is hilarious. He has a leg of lamb, and he's using it as a weapon. It's hilarious. But yeah, the fact is, we get to see. No, I did not almost fell out, but I'm trying to get an angle that fits within the small space I have, because I'm actually in a very cramped space, so I have very limitations on movement. So. Like you can see my bed literally right behind me with my little dog Pop. There's Pop. There you go, Pop. I'm giving you rubs. But yeah, we actually get to see the red hair pirates kick ass. Not completely, but still, it's more than we got in the manga and the anime. But yeah, it's really fun seeing the red hair pirates kick some ass finally. So, yeah, in terms of, again, the changes they made, I can accept. Oh wait, there's one change that there's another change I cannot accept. And again, I'm liking the ratio. There's like one or two things I don't like, but there's a lot more stuff that I like, and that's a good ratio in terms of changes. Another thing that I did not agree with was Luffy being able. Now, where's my tripod for when I record my fencing fights? The map case was roughly about this length. It's not as wide as this. It's, you know, a lot more. It's smaller and it's circular as opposed to triangular. You know, it's so. Oh, my bottle of Pepsi. No, that's too big. It's roughly about this size, in, you know, width. It's about this long. Luffy being able to take something like that and show. Now again, he has stretching powers. Realistically, he could. Like, okay, sorry, not realistically. Not realistically, but in the confines of what his power is, he can do it. Actually, given what we now know about his true power, it makes. Yeah, actually, you know what? I'm taking that complaint back. I'm taking that complaint back. Because it does not fully reflect what the Gomu Gomu no Mi can do, but it definitely works in the confines of the Nika Nika no Mi model Sun God. Oh, okay. So that's okay. I'll forgive that scene, actually. You know what? I'll forgive him swallowing the map case. Yeah, given his true power, I have to forgive that. But yeah. But yeah, no, like, again, the change. This does seem to be a faithful adaptation, and again, I'm astonished so far. Now, mind you, I'm only two. Yeah, pretty much. Now, keep in mind, Luffy doesn't know his true power. He still doesn't in the manga. Like, Luffy doesn't even know his true powers. He still thinks he has the Gomu Gomu no Mi. So yeah, which I still find hilarious. But like, again, now if he had the Gomu Gomu no Mi, it does make sense that he could stretch his neck out, like widthwise, to swallow long cylindrical objects, but there would still be a shape because he can't compress it. You know. However, if we take into account what his true devil fruit is, him swallowing the map case to hide it makes proper sense, because again, he believes he could hide it there because of the rubber powers, but he doesn't. Like, again, Luffy's stupid. Because, like, think about it, just expanding his fist into a giant does not make it stronger. However, cartoon logic, it does. Yeah, so technically, yeah, by the power of the Nika Nika fruit, if he was to swallow a long object into his stomach, it will just compress. It wouldn't be sticking out, you know? So it makes sense. Again, looking at it from Luffy, from Luffy's perspective, oh, he's just assuming it will work because he can stretch. But again, cartoon logic, it would work the same way. But yeah, now as an adaptation, now here we go, folks. It's time. How much do I rate it out of 10 as a One Piece fan? So, as going into this adaptation, straight out of the gate, as this episode, going straight into it with only, and as a non-One Piece fan, I gave it a 7 or 8 out of 10. Okay? As an adaptation, looking at this as a One Piece fan, personally, I give it an A. It lost some points because of what they did to Buggy's Devil Fruit. And it lost another point because of basically, again, it's the same reason why I took points off of it as a non-One Piece fan, because I'm personally not a fan of trying to tell two stories back to back like that. Not a fan of it, just not. It makes sense in sitcoms like Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Scrubs and Friends. I was fine with them bouncing between different groups of characters to tell different stories. But in the narrative that they're telling of this live action One Piece thing, not a fan of it. Now, do I feel like they're rushing the show? So, the Orange Town story arc was 3 episodes in the anime. There was 3 episodes. Each episode was roughly 20 minutes long. This episode of One Piece, the second episode, was 1 hour long. So they essentially compressed those 3 episodes into an hour-long episode. And I will say, they did a not bad job. Now, the next story arc, though, is we're getting our favorite liar. So I am curious how they're going to handle Usopp. Now, I've already seen, everyone has seen how they changed Usopp's design. I'm okay with it. Like Usopp's big massive nose was not like, okay, it made him stand out as it was his distinguishing feature. It made him stand out as an anime protagonist. It made him stand out. It's not entirely necessary. If I'm being realistic, and I would not expect them to constantly have a long tin prosthetic on someone's nose, you know. So I'm completely fine with Usopp not having his signature nose. But again, we'll see how they cover the rest of Usopp and his story arc. So in terms of the manga and anime, the next story arc is called Syrup Village. So Syrup Village is the next story arc. Now this story arc was 10 episodes, folk. So if they're truly trying to have each story arc be a single episode, they're in trouble. I'm going to be honest with you, they're in big trouble if they try and do that with this one. I don't know what they're doing in episode 3. I don't know. Again, I'm doing these reviews immediately after I finish watching an episode. Again, you're getting way ahead of yourself. They said that this season of One Piece is only the East Blue arc. So they will only enter the Grand Line at the very end of the season. So don't worry about that. Don't worry about Choppa, Soul King, or Frankie. Oh, I should have done it this way. Frankie. So don't worry about them. They won't technically Chopper will be the next character to join technically in the next season. But as I said, I'm doing these reviews as soon as I watch the episode. However, given the time and given that I share a room with my baby brother, and it's about time for us to have our dinner, and then he has to go to bed, I'm not going to be able to do any more reviews today. I'll try and get more videos done tomorrow. I'll actually try and go to bed early tonight so I can wake up extra early so I can get loads of videos done before he gets home from school. So I'm hoping to get all these videos done. But keep in mind, folks, the episodes are an hour long each, and I'm doing 2 reviews in one video. I'm giving and again, I'm pointing out the positives and the negatives of each of the thing. So I'm going to be trying to be fair to the live action adaptation, which is why these review videos are being so long, is because I am trying to be fair. Now this one went on a little longer because I was reacting to the stream chat. If that happens, please bear with me. But yeah, I will see you guys after I watch episode 3. I will not watch episode 3 until tomorrow, so that way I can get my review in as soon as I'm done seeing it. In the meantime, this is the Celtic Nerd signing out. I hope all of you have a lovely day, and I hope to God you guys take what I said to heart. Understand that this is seemingly again, give this live action adaptation a try. Do not just simply write it off because it's live action. Again, the creator of the show himself was heavily involved in the producing of this show. It's the same reason why, like, I have issues where, like, with I have some skepticism with when they announced the Percy Jackson live action series being done by Disney. I was like, no, not Disney. No, leave Percy Jackson alone. No. I was horrified. I was like, no. Disney got their hands on Percy Jackson. I was like, no. But Rick Riordan, the author himself, is an executive producer on the Disney Plus series, and he was the one in charge of casting for the characters. So that gives me faith. I will be checking. I will definitely be doing a video series on the Percy Jackson series, because I'm a diehard Percy Jackson fan. Oh God, I love that series. But yeah, I'll be paying close attention to that, and I'm going to give that show a try, just because of Rick Riordan has putting his seal of approval on it. So, again, folks, just because it's an adaptation, don't just write it off. Give it a try. Now, again, if the author or the creator of the source material is silent, or if they are silent, then be as skeptical all you want. Be as skeptical as you want. However, if a creator of a content, if the actual creator of the content says, like, you know what, I approve of this stuff, then who are we to question? Or who are we to say this ruins the thing that you created? You know, you agree to this. If you say it doesn't ruin it, it doesn't ruin it. Now, the question still remains: is it good? That's a different question. So far, though, this is good. In my opinion, it's a good show. I will still recommend to anyone who has only watched this version of One Piece, watch the anime or read the manga. It will, if you liked this One Piece, the original will blow your bloody mind. This is the Celtic Nerd signing out. One name, one sky.